All right, here we go. So nobody's tuning in just yet, but basically what I wanted to do here was, since I had this all set up from yesterday where I did a live takeover with Designer Con's account, I set up this nice booth space in my home studio, and before I tore it down, I thought that I would just do a live video of myself, of my own, and make use of this, because you can't really see it, but there's just piles of books and loose prints that I pulled for the Instagram takeover yesterday, and it seemed like a unique opportunity to kind of share some of my inspirations and my process, and some of the things that I'm, I guess, better known for, if I could say that. So yeah, thought today might be as good a day as any to show off some stuff. So you guys know who I am already if you're following my account, but I'm Brad Albright, and I guess in the Dallas area I'm probably best known as the 3D guy. You know, I do art for 3D glasses, the old red and blue style anaglyph glasses. And little known fact, if you've never ordered from my my Etsy page, every order I put in a bonus pair of these 3D glasses, and they work on my website at oldschool3d.com. So that way, anybody who ever orders anything as small as a sticker, you get a pair of glasses, and then you can see all of my 3D work on the web, and it looks really great being lit up like that. So yeah, what I thought I'd do today is just show off some of these loose prints that I have laying around, and then talk about some of my favorite books and my inspiration, and a little bit of the stuff that I've been exploring behind me. You know, I've got a lot of these new experiments that I've been kind of fiddling with, but I guess to kind of kick it off, a couple of my most favorite projects, a couple of things that I guess you could say maybe I'm known for. This is an album cover I did for the band He Is Legend. Awesome guys out of North Carolina. Shout out to Skylar and the guys. This was an amazing opportunity to work with them. They gave me total creative freedom, and I was able to take my love of the band and what I knew about them and their lyrics through all the years and really apply it to an entire vinyl package that captured the sound and really acted as a face for the album. And that's one thing I love about working with musicians, is that level of trust that they give you to put a face to the sound. You know, they work in, you know, a different medium from a visual artist, and so it's this complementary relationship. So this artwork kind of rolls around the side as a panorama, and on the inside there's a full view of that artwork, along with spot illustrations that I did for each song with the lyrics. I did all the design work for the packaging. Each of these individual illustrations, you know, represent each of the songs, and then those same illustrations show up on the vinyl itself. And just being able to do this thing from start to finish, designing the whole look of the album, a band that I've loved for years, it was just an amazing opportunity. So that's one thing that I'm maybe known for, and I'm very proud of doing. This past year, I had the chance to do some pretty cool things in Dallas. I did this poster for Live Nation and Third Eye Blind. They were playing at the Pavilion, the Toyota Music Factory. Yeah, they were there with, let's see, who was it? Jimmy Eat World. Yeah. So, good show. This sort of updated the main poster for their tour and put sort of a Southwest spin on the whole thing. What else? I recently did this poster for the this company, Lilu Multiprops. They do special event signings, And so this is a poster of the Lone Rangers from the movie Airheads. And hey, thanks, Robot Wig. Man, I love your work too. Thank you so much. So anyway, yeah, this poster was for an exclusive Brendan Fraser signing, and I got a message through my Etsy shop yesterday. The writer of the movie, he reached out to me saying how much he loved it, and he ordered a poster. He wasn't necessarily into the 3D thing. He wasn't sure. So if he happens to see this, I put in an extra 3D poster for you. What else? Some recent stuff that's fun. I was doing a 30-day sticker a day campaign, and one of them I turned into a poster here. This is, that classic X-Files poster in full 3D. So again, take some of those glasses if you got them, the red and blue. Go to oldschool3d.com and look at some of these things, or get on my Etsy shop. You can look at them there if I don't have them on my website yet. But yeah, that's a fun one. This was an idea that I had for a few years, and I just recently got around to doing it. It's that classic Queen 2 album cover, but done in an Aliens movie style. I love the Alien movies. That's like my Star Wars. I've always said that I feel like there's too much Star Wars art in the world, but Aliens I never get tired of. So I've been kind of fiddling with this stuff. And let's see, I did another thing. Here it is. Don't know why, but kind of applying my love of hard rock and rock history and applying it like an Aliens spin to it. So that's the Rolling Stones logo. I've got a couple other ideas in the hopper. We'll see if they turn into anything. What else? Shaun of the Dead. This is a movie prop series that I did. Each was a ballpoint pen illustration, an individual piece that I compiled together into this poster. Let's see. Zelda. I've never to this day beat a Zelda game. I am working on Breath of the Wild, but I usually get kind of lost and frankly a little bored, but I do always want to break all the pots. So I figured that was as true an adaptation of the game into a poster as I could come up with. All right. Jurassic Park. What's going to happen to the goat? This is probably my most popular piece of all time. I agree. I like the layout. I think it's a nice piece. But man, if I could just tap into whatever the magic is that people love in this one, if I could apply that in the future, I don't know. Part of what it does that I don't do as much as I really should, and I like doing this, is kind of breaking the frame edge, bringing in that outer border just a hair, and then having stuff break out the bounds. What else do we got? Everybody loves Rick and Morty, right? And let's see, lastly for prints, I love Pinball, and I've been taking a lot of inspiration from Pinball. This is a tribute to the 90s Twilight Zone pinball machine. Alright. Of course, these things probably look better on your screen if you go and look at them on the web anyway, rather than me holding up a poster. What I really thought I would do is dig through some of these books that I have laying around. While I'm thinking of it, I'm going to detach the camera here. And I'm going to flip the camera around. Alright, so I pulled some of my favorite books of inspiration, and these are things that I would never ever bring out to a show with me. Robot Wig, thank you again, man. That is very kind of you. Your alt posters are amazing. Yeah, so I would never have these books with me at a show to talk about, so I thought I would dig into that, but while I'm standing, just give you a quick pan of my studio. I'm all about metal and hard rock, and I love having the artwork around me in the studio. The band Intronaut and Baroness both have really excellent artwork all the time. Can't go wrong with a Vertigo poster. Got my bass guitar that just collects dust since I'm always drawing instead of playing. I love this Monk 1 poster for 311. I should have got the sister poster that they made for the Houston show. It was, in that case, it was a spaceman in the desert facing off against this guy, the Lucha Libre cowboy standing on the moon. Thomas Ott piece over here, Swiss cartoonist with scratchboard. And then here is one of my two printers. This is an Epson P80, and I also have a 3880. They're both 17-inch printers, but I use them for different things. In both cases, I'm using a refillable ink system that I do through Inkjet Mall. The guy there, John Cohn, has formulated these inks that do a really great job of replicating the Epson color profiles and qualities, and it's like 1/10 of the cost of the Epson inks, and it takes a little bit of kind of finagling to make sure that the printers will work with a refillable system, but it's changed everything for me to be able to refill those cartridges, because I burn through black ink, especially all the heavy line work just blows through ink cartridges, and it's insanely expensive when you get it through Epson. Fort Worth Axe Factory, yeah, I'm definitely down to do some axe themed work. If you see my let's see, somewhere here I did a poster for The Shining. You can see it on my feed. I recently posted my Shining drawing. It's got some of my movie props drawn in there. But yeah, before I go too far, I wanted to say, if anybody is in Deep Ellum, I hope that everybody's okay. I know that there was some riots and looting and violence that happened there last night. I hope that everyone's all right. Frank and Paula at Kettle Art Gallery, that's my home base. This glass even was from their wedding. Shout out to Frank and Paula. I hope you guys are good. Love you. I hope things are all right out there in Deep Ellum. But yeah, before too much time goes, let me think. What was I going to show you? Early inspirations. Ren and Stimpy. I say it all the time. Ren and Stimpy made me who I am today. The dark, twisted, gross sense of humor for sure, and then all the hand-done texture work. Like, this is just a book that I got as an adult. I didn't even have this as a kid. But the show itself, I think it holds up, and I think I might even like it more now than I did then, which is saying a lot. But everything's so digital now, on the game was great, the Ren and Stimpy game. Tell me more about that. But yeah, the handmade texture of the show, like these backgrounds, and the fact that they never drew the same expression twice. Like, they were actually told not to draw the same expressions. So it was always different, always so expressive and surreal. Whistling Salesman. I did not like the reboot. I really, really wanted to. I was so excited when it came back. But for me, it was a little bit heavy-handed with the humor. Trying to go too adult with it just didn't feel right. It wasn't funny to me in that way. It kind of felt grosser, and I think now what we know about John Kay, it's kind of a sore spot. Yeah, I'd rather go with the originals for sure. So yeah, Ren and Stimpy, big influence. Scary stories to tell in the dark, right? Looking at this stuff, I remember kids on the school bus that were older than me, they were reading it, and we were trying to look over the seat and see, what are you guys looking at? And they were like, you guys are not old enough yet. Look at that. That's fucked up. That is not appropriate for kids. Awesome books. And there's an artist now, I forget his name, but he does a 1-for-1 spot-on recreation of this style. Which, that's cool. I guess nobody else is doing it, so somebody might as well. Shel Silverstein, great storytelling, great drawings. Yeah. I was always about storytelling, more than I was about fine art. I did go to museums and I took art class and things like that. The book's art is dumbed down now for scary stories to tell in the dark. They changed it. Whistling Salesman says. Yeah, so I was more into entertainment and cartooning and films and books growing up. And even through college, in my head, I didn't know what to call it. In my mind, it was entertainment art, whereas, let's say, gallery art rewarded more, I guess, ambiguity, the artifact, the original piece. That's where all the value was placed. The significance in the context of art history, whereas illustration, as I finally learned to call it as I was getting into a graduate program for illustration, that really hit the nail on the head. Illustration was the thing that brought the artistry and the storytelling and put them together in a way that really rewarded clear communication, telling a story as efficiently as possible and letting the art and the story really complement each other and support each other. Whereas the more overt and clear your storytelling is in a gallery sense, typically in the fine art world, that's just not really what's rewarded with value and with collecting and things like that. So I try to find venues that are interested in that accessible quality. And so things like Pinball, for example, that's been a big inspiration for me because it's taking all of these different disciplines. You've got mechanical, electrical engineering, you've got lights, sound, gameplay, storytelling. The whole package is a visual, auditory, physical experience. It's all of the senses, and it's really just this inspirational combination of stuff that I can barely understand because I'm not mechanically minded, but for me, I can pull so much visual inspiration from that world. And so that's what a lot of my personal work has been about lately. And going and working at gaming and pinball events has been a really good venue for me. More so than I would say things like Comic-Con, which seems a little counterintuitive to people. A lot of people would assume that going to and working at a Comic-Con would be the best venue, right, for someone doing this kind of work. But my experience in doing that is that you are competing with a lot of visual artists. You're competing for fewer dollars that the attendees have at their disposal, because by the time they get through the door, they're already down, say, $100 maybe for their admission fees. They're paying for autograph signings. They then have just a little bit of cash left, and you've got all of these artists that are generally selling, Xerox copies of their art, and they're selling them for like $5 a piece, $10 a piece. And frankly, I personally, I can't compete with that with, archival fine art poster prints. And that's just as much a fault of my own for bringing that type of product to that venue. But I'm not interested in undercutting my relationships with galleries or what I'm doing online as a direct seller. So I've had much better experiences working through art festivals locally, Fort Worth and Dallas and Arlington, and then doing these gaming and pinball related events where the attendees, they understand what they're seeing. It's a good venue with like-minded people that are excited about things that are entertaining and interactive and exciting, but they're not being just bombarded by a huge amount of people working in a fan art capacity. Phil Berry, thank you so much. So anyway, that was kind of a long aside, but that's sort of the the style of venue and event that I've found works and I find inspirational. It's not so much of a grind and a drag. For lack of a better word, I feel kind of whorish if I'm working at a Comic-Con, because I'm just fighting so hard to get any eyes on my booth. It's not a real fun experience, and I've found that I don't really need to do that. I'm doing better kind of sticking to my guns and doing other sorts of events. Yeah, I do want to get more into some of my influences, but as long as you're asking about it and it's on the screen, I'll show you. Whistling Salesman says, all the works behind you are made of wood? Yes. So this is a combination of Christmas ornaments that I'm doing and these three-dimensional pieces. I don't really have a great name for what this is. I guess it's like a bas-relief, but it's the same archival printing that I do on my posters, but it's applied to wood and laser cut and then stacked in a dimensional way so that you can turn it in your hands, or you can walk, back and forth and see it move. So it's taking that interactivity that's in my 3D posters, removing the visual distortion, and then giving you this premium physical product that's very interesting. And I love this zebra pattern that you get on the stack of wood. They're solid all the way through, and it's something I had a vision for many years ago, before I even had a laser cutter to work with. And I'm really happy to be doing them now. I don't sell them super often, to be honest, but I do them mostly for my own entertainment, and yeah, they're totally worth doing. And I'm excited because I think they're some of the most original stuff that I do. I don't make these in a fan art treatment. These are all original images, original characters, and they're just sort of celebrating that interest and love in pinball. And so they're good for people's arcades, their home arcade, their game room. And then they all have these custom hanging fixtures built into them so that they extend off the wall and float just a hair. Yeah, so that's what these guys are. The most recent one is here. This is my damned cute pinball. It's sort of satanic Baphomet type character, but done super cute. And it says, let's see, 1 soul equals 3 balls, no refunds. Stacked up in layers like everything else. But this one is kind of unique because it is built up with colored acrylic and a lighting fixture. And what happens in a darkened room when it's hung against the wall, you get this burning ember kind of glow that comes around it. You can see it in my Instagram stories and my feed. You see more of the detail of what that's like in action. So yeah, that's probably my most premium piece right now. Yeah, and then also in that vein, this is etched wood. So it's a raw wood surface. These darkened areas are laser etched, and then it similarly has a lighting fixture built into it with colored acrylic. And in a darker room, it lights up on the pinball playfield and back glass there. Yeah, and if not for the pandemic and everything, my spring events, I would have been showing some of these on site, especially at Texas Pinball Festival. That's one of my favorite things to do. So I'm looking forward to Texas Pinball Festival 2021. Let's see. These other things behind me, these are Christmas ornaments. They're made the same way, archival prints applied to wood and laser cut. And these have been a really fun way of dumbing down what I'm doing with these big pieces in a way that I can afford to sell cheaper. So they're, I guess, what would I say? They're accessible and they're cheap and they're giftable. So it's an easy way for people to express their love for a movie or a TV show, or in this case, it's just kind of playing on 2020. You need Santa to bring you toilet paper instead of toys and whatever else Santa would bring. He needs teepee for his bung ho ho ho, is what I say. So ornaments, those are great. Stickers have been really great lately too. Any of these ways where I can take an idea and kind of run with it for an afternoon. In April, I was doing a 30-day sticker campaign. So every single day, I would draw something new from scratch, and I would prep it for print. I would laminate it, die cut it, take pictures, post it online, and then share it on Instagram. And so it was 30 whole days of doing that every day, and I got some really great stuff out of it. I did a Tiger King. This is from Doom Eternal, if you're a gamer. Yes, I definitely ship to the UK. Stickers are, I think it's only like $2 extra to ship to the UK. This is an old one, but it's a favorite Predator. I showed you that one already. So things like stickers, they're great ways of taking a drawing exercise and boiling it down into something that I can monetize, first of all, but in a way that's not price gouging. It's cheap and easy for customers to pick up or to give as a gift. And so it's kind of a win-win. Whereas if I'm working on a poster graphic, like what I was showing you before, something like the Twilight Zone here, something like that could be anywhere from like 15 to 30 hours of work, which is great and totally worth it. But sometimes I just need to work through a bunch of ideas really fast, and not having to worry about a background, and just simply celebrating, in this case, sourdough bread and sourdough starter, which is something that people are doing in quarantine. Hey Jody, how are you? And Ryan, hey buddy. So ornaments and stickers, I like doing that kind of stuff as a quick exercise, and something that you can take a silly idea, just a dumb stupid pun like the Predator, or this one's been super popular. This is Corona Holio, right? Just a dumb dad joke. Spend a few hours developing it out, turn it into a thing that people can share. I can share my love of Beavis and Butthead, for example, and move on to the next thing. And if one of them doesn't work, no big deal. It's a new idea the next day. But I had to stop the 30-day campaign because I needed to jump back onto some client projects and some more involved things. So for me, it's good to alternate. I know other people, like the illustrator Chris Piacic. He is unbelievable about doing a daily drawing. He's been doing it for like 10 or 15 years, I think. At least 10. And I don't know how you keep that up, but that's a great practice. Having a regular practice of whatever it is that you like to do, I think, is just so important. My whole philosophy is just to stick to a process that you love. Even if you're good at other things, you got to do the thing that you love to do, because inevitably there's going to be these ups and downs, and you need that core process that you love to really carry you through. Thank you guys for watching this, by the way. It's really out of character for me to do this kind of thing. But I wanted to take advantage of this backdrop that I set up for doing the Instagram takeover with DesignerCon yesterday. And I also lost my video at the end of it. Sometimes this Instagram live TV stuff, when you finish your video, it offers you that you can download the video and that you can post it to your feed, but it doesn't always work, and I don't know why. I'm hoping that today kind of works. So I'm basically recreating what I did yesterday. Thanks, Robot Wig. It's good to see you too. So Anyway, something else I was going to show you. This is just a piece of scrap, but a new idea that I'm kind of dabbling with is doing jigsaw puzzles. And I'm finding that in no way will it be cost effective for me to produce them, but I'm really enjoying this process of exploring how to take the same process that I'm applying here and with the ornaments and doing it in a way where I can apply art to a jigsaw puzzle. And some of the stuff that you have to figure out is power and speed settings on the laser. So this is a test sheet where I was trying different speeds and different power settings. In some cases going over it twice at a lower power in order to get a different sort of result. You know, in this case it was a nice tight fit, and this is like a masking material that's protecting the surface. That's why it looks faded. Little teaser. That's one of the patterns I'm working with there. Oh yeah, and then I've got these scraps. And this is also a benefit of doing this live video, I'm finding, is that I can show you guys all this like nonsense that's cluttering up my studio in a way where I would never have it with me at a festival, but it's still kind of valuable to show. This is a pile of scraps. You can see the burned wood on the backside. These are all layers that would go together to form one of these damn cute pinball pieces. It's a lot of work, cutting all this stuff out individually, making sure that it follows the right die lines, then stacking it up appropriately to get the right effect. Let's see. What do we got here? Feel free to ask me any questions if you think of it. I'm trying to pay more attention to the text that's coming up on the screen. It's easy for me to miss some of those things. I'm sure it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Cheers. Since we're avoiding all the grocery stores, well, I should say we're doing pickup at the grocery store. We're not going inside. So I've been slowly running out of whatever booze I had accumulated in the house over the past like 8 years. I don't drink that much, but inevitably I've been kind of burning through what we did have. So yeah, I tried a wine delivery thing. I think Bright Cellars is what it was called. So I got 6 bottles of wine in the mail, and I've been like excited to try these new wines with the tasting notes and everything. Jody Sauce is asking for Tony. He wants to know if I plan to do an arcade game in the vein of the pinball pieces. You mean like an arcade cabinet? You know, like one of these that's an arcade, or you mean like a full-blown piece? At one point, when I did this one here, yes. I'm not sure what you're saying yes to. When I did this piece, there was also a light-up arcade piece, and this is fragments of that piece. It was a lot more work to put together, and it frankly didn't sell. This design did much better. Okay, so you want a mini piece like this. Noted. I will. I might revisit this design actually, because I like the look of it, but as a whole, it didn't really. It didn't have the same wow factor, and it was a lot more work. So with these types of things, I have to find a happy medium between the workload and what I can effectively charge for it. Like these I sell for $300. These are $150. This is $150 or $250 with the lighting rig in it, which I know it's a lot to ask. It's definitely a premium piece, and it hardly pays for the time involved to make it, but I just really like making these things, so I do them for myself first. And if they sit in my inventory forever, you know, eventually if somebody wants to buy it, that's awesome. Yet weirdly, I've had a lot of success with the astronaut here. You know, I sold these like, I don't know, probably 5 to 1, you know, versus any of these other designs. But yeah, I will definitely think about translating some of this style with the color and everything into arcade cabinets, because I know, not everyone's into pinball. That's pretty specific. Yeah. All right, let's look at some more influences, huh? The Far Side. I love the Far Side. Like, you probably take for granted the simplicity of these things, but the magic of one single frame with one line of text and the collision that happens in your head at that moment where you get it and it cracks you up. There's something beautiful about what Gary Larson could do with the Far Side, and that's always been a big inspiration for me. Hi, Mom. How are you? I'm basically going through what I did yesterday with DesignerCon, since I still have this setup going, and just taking advantage of it while it's here, since I wasn't able to save the video that I did yesterday. Let's see. This changed my life. This is Thomas Ott. He's a Swiss scratchboard cartoonist. When I was, I think, it might have been the summer between junior and senior year in college, I found a couple of his books in clearance at Half Price Books, and this stuff blew my mind. It's all wordless, black and white, very grim, like EC Comics Twilight Zone style. And he tells a full story like storyboards for a movie. No words at all. It's just storytelling in pictures. And his technique of the scratch drawings, they're just so gorgeous to look at. And he's since really developed as an artist. He's come along with a few other books. This is one of my all-time favorites, Cinema Panopticon. I know this stuff's backwards, but Thomas Ott is the artist, and just incredible work. So I was very inspired by him in my senior year of college as I was working on my thesis project, and so I wore my influences on my sleeve, and I did a full wordless graphic novel. This is Stressed Out West, a nervous wordless graphic novel. Did all of this in ballpoint pen. It's something like 180 pages, I think, and I was just going balls to the wall. Didn't even have time to stop and think about it. I was just filling in the gaps. I had an idea, I would draw it, put it aside. Had another idea, put it aside, and then I would be filling in and transitioning from one scene to the next. And for many years, I felt like this was my peak of creativity. It took a long time before I felt the same level of purpose and drive in my work. At that time, I was shifting from thinking I wanted to be an animator to realizing that through comics, I could tell a more involved story, get more involved with the detail in the drawings, and then I could, if I were animating, in which case I would have to draw 1,000,000 frames just to make something move properly, and it seemed like a better use of time and creativity to tell a full story. So as I was finishing college, sequential art was the thing that interested me the most. But I had a hard time finding work right out of school, so I continued drawing on my own while I was working retail, and it carried me through for a couple of years. It wasn't very inspirational of a time for me, but what ended up happening was I felt like there were some gaps in my education in order to find work as a graphic designer. So while I was working at a Blockbuster, I went to the community college that had a pretty decent design program, and I took some supplemental courses. Whereas my undergrad was a Bachelor of Fine Arts, it was more focused on studio, traditional artwork, even though I was taking a lot of detours and studying film history, animation, rock and roll, the sorts of things that I felt inspired by. But I didn't get a good, a good foundation in design. So I went to the community college. I took some typography, some digital illustration, and some layout design, and got a handle on how to work in Illustrator, InDesign, and then just how to understand and design with words and typography. And thankfully that helped me to start a graphic design career that supported me for a few years before I was able to sort of upgrade into a better design job that had more of a potential to draw, working for a licensed merchandising company called BioWorld. And meanwhile, I was also looking into and eventually going back to graduate school to study illustration. And what that really did for me was show me how to take the love of drawing and the desire to tell a story and bring them together with a business mindset. And it was during the I guess the recession around 2010, 2011. A lot of artists were struggling and looking for other sources of income, and so teaching was something that a lot of people wanted to do. So the program was full of these professional artists that were looking to teach to supplement their income. And for me, it was just a chance to be around other people more like myself that were telling stories with drawing. They were coming from different angles and different professional expertise, and the ability to learn from each other in this program at Hartford Art School, the University of Hartford. Doing that at the same time as working for the licensed merchandising company, everything opened up for me at that point. I started getting involved in the art scene here in Dallas. I mentioned earlier, Kettle Art Gallery has been my home base, for the past 10 years. Wonderful, open-hearted, grassroots, underground artist type collective there. And again, I hope they're okay, because I know that there was some trouble down there last night with some riots and violence. I just hope everyone's okay. I saw a message pop up from Frank Campagna, notification on my phone here, but I haven't been able to read it yet. But that's all kind of an aside. But staying true to that influence of storytelling and a love of drawing ended up steering me back properly to where I've been really happy doing what I think I do best the last couple of years. And I've been fortunate to be out on my own now for a couple of years. I quit my gig, left on great terms in 2018. Speaking of which, Robbie Salazar, hey buddy, how are you? So I've been out on my own and really been enjoying this combination of doing my own work, doing a bit of freelance work, doing festivals. It's been a lot of fun stuff. But that influence of comic books and animation has always been really important. Speaking of which, this book is indispensable. Understanding Comics by Scott Mccloud. Even if you aren't into comic books, if you don't plan on making comic books, still, this is such a great book at explaining the visual language of storytelling. So, let's see, yesterday I did a good job of flipping right to the page that I needed. Here we go, perfect. For example, this book is told in a comic book format, so hopefully you can read comics and be comfortable with that. But this is one thing that it points out, whereas you've got a sort of very simplistic smiley face. This represents the everyman. The more specific that you get in your features, the more specific a person that it's referring to. So in your artwork, depending what you're trying to convey, by using a simplistic drawing versus a very, very detailed drawing, you're referencing either the everyman or a specific person. That's just one example of how this book kind of explains how we perceive visual information. And again, even if you're not into comics or have no intention of making comics, this book covers so much good stuff that it'll resonate with whatever you're watching on Netflix, whatever you're seeing walking around, just out in the world. It applies to everything. There's a sequel book, Making Comics, again by Scott Mccloud. I know this stuff's all backwards, but you get the idea. This is a lot more specific to the tools of the trade, for people that are actively trying to make comic books. I still have a dream of a particular story that I'd like to tell in comic book form, but like animation, it's still a whole lot of work. And these days, I've actually gotten more enjoyment about focusing on the one finely crafted image. So posters have become really interesting to me because you're trying to boil down everything that you want to say about a subject or an event or a TV show or a movie. Boil it all down into that one self-sufficient image that says everything that you want to say about it. And to me, that's a really worthy challenge and something that is exciting. And that's why for something like, for something like this Airheads poster, everything that I wanted to say about the movie is pretty much here in it. You've got the rockers, you've got some subtle references like the crash test dummy toy. You've got Michael Richards up here in the air vent, eating a sandwich and getting on a walkie-talkie. You've got the squirt guns, dripping water. Got the KPPX backstage pass. There's all these like little details that you can sort of bury into the one image, and to me that's an exciting challenge to try and capture everything. Whistling Salesman, were you on earlier when I said that last night I was talking to the writer of Airheads? He reached out to me on Etsy and ordered one of these posters, but in 2D, so I sent him both as kind of a surprise. So another big influence, Black Hole. Charles Burns. This guy's line work is awesome. I don't know if you can see these details, but the cleanliness of his ink work and this like sort of feathered shading style that he uses. Mind-blowing work. Very, very clean, but also very dark story-wise. This story is essentially about sexually transmuted mutation, where all these teenagers who are getting promiscuous, they start mutating and having to hide out in the woods. And actually, I think I'm due for a reread because I forget how it pans out, but it's a really amazing book. And he ended up following it up in recent years with this trilogy that used a lot of color. It started with X'd Out, and then I think the next one is The Hive, and then Sugar Skull. And he does some really interesting stuff with his framing and his storytelling. For example, in the first book, just the first page, you're like, what the hell is this? Just black squares and red squares? Like, that doesn't mean anything. What's that all about? Why? Why are we seeing that? But then we find that these sort of ambiguous shapes and images that are in the book, they start to make sense, but only after you've gotten into the second and the third volume, where you realize that those are tight shots, and it pulls back and you get to see the full image of what that thing is. And so without reading all three of them, you're not getting all the information, but they complement each other in this package that's more than the sum of the parts. So yeah, that's Charles Burns. I would be remiss not to mention Robert Crumb, R. Crumb, the grandfather of underground comics. Amazing draftsman, a crazy guy. Like if you see the Crumb documentary, you realize that his whole family was kind of nuts, but he had this compulsion to draw constantly. Like you'd probably think he was some kind of like savant. Definitely some level of like Asperger's to him. Incredible artist. Anywhere from these very well crafted traditional drawings. And this particular book is a lot of like the sweeter side of our Crumb it is, but a lot of his stuff is pretty dirty and crass. He took a lot of acid in the 60s or 70s, and you could see it in that work that he used to do with like Zap Comics. He also did a lot of great work. Shout out to Barb, my friend Barb. She got me this great book. It's all of our Crumb's record cover art. He did these like Blues Legends trading cards, and I took that inspiration for doing a banner design for the Deep Ellum neighborhood down there. The Blues Legends. Let's see. There's a portrait of Frank Zappa. How about that? Beautiful line work. Big inspiration from him. In more recent years, he adapted the entire book of Genesis into a graphic novel. I have not read this thing, to be honest. I'm not sure if I could get through all of it, but just this opening page is fantastic. That is just an incredible image. Beautiful, beautiful work. And also, it's dedicated to Aline. That's not how he pronounces Aline, but that's how I pronounce my girlfriend Aline's name. She's downstairs somewhere wrangling our dog for me. I forget how Crumb even pronounces Aline. Aileen? Yeah, that's it. Aileen Crumb. Bernie Wrightson. Has anybody ever seen Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein? I like you too, Aline. Hello. So Bernie Wrightson is this amazing draftsman, pen and ink. He worked on things like EC Comics, scary, monstrous kind of stuff. And years ago, he did this adaptation of Frankenstein with the most incredible drawings. Look at these lines. That is just sexy as hell. Amazing drawings. And I'm so inspired by this kind of control in the line work. Mine never comes out like that because inevitably I get a little sloppier, I guess. I have a tendency to throw my eyes out of focus when I'm shading. I just get into a zone. I look through the paper like you would with one of those magic eye, illusion things, which is fine. It works for me, and I kind of like the texture that I can get, but I always aspire to the sort of cleanliness that these guys like Bernie Wrightson and to some extent Robert Crumb are getting. Similarly, you guys know Frank Frazetta? Frazetta, you probably know him from doing Conan the Barbarian type artwork. He did a lot of this early on fantasy artwork of like the heavy metal magazine years. His paintings are incredible, but his drawings are especially nice. Look at that control, like these solid areas of black and solid areas of white. Like aside from the image itself, which is nice and sexy and aggressive, the control and the use of ink in an image like that is just something to aspire to. Let's see, I've got a few books of his. I want to try to find at least one more nice drawing that I can show you. Sorry, that's kind of boring, I'm sure. Yeah, even there. It's just like a rough sketch. But look at the control in those lines. Like, that's about as beautiful a drawing as I think you could aspire to. I love that kind of line work. It's so gorgeous. Like, look at that underarm or down on the leg where it starts to change direction. So that's something that I try to employ a little bit. And if you can see up close, this is a pattern that I was drawing of the carpet from the movie The Shining. You can see some of this shading going in different directions just because I like that texture. It doesn't follow the form the way that you're supposed to when you're shading. Like, that's the whole thing. You're supposed to follow the shape of the thing that you're drawing, but sometimes if you violate that, it kind of looks nice. And let's see, someone else that I discovered in grad school that I never would have found out on my own was this illustrator from, oh god, probably like the first half of the 20th century. So he was born in 1874, I mean. Franklin Booth. He worked on like advertising campaigns in the 30s, essentially. And so this book is made up of these kind of weird images that they look half-baked, but because they were probably framing advertising, right? So, for example, take a look at this line quality. Sorry, I'm trying to get it in focus if I can. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get in focus here, but I think you get the idea where the shading lines are going every which way, yet somehow it's easy to understand what you're seeing. I love the quality of this line work. And as it turns out, this guy, he was trying to emulate what he thought these old masters were doing with like a nib, pen and ink. But it turns out that he was actually looking at like intaglio printmaking prints. So those lines were actually carved into printing plates, but what he saw was ink lines. So he learned to draw that way with ink itself. And so that in turn inspired guys like Robert Crumb, who of course inspired guys like me today. So it's this like weird lineage where you have to track back through the influences of, who this guy was looking at, what inspired him, what he misunderstood and translated into this other thing. Yeah, I've never been great with art history, but going to grad school for illustration exposed me to artists that I never would have seen otherwise, guys that existed purely in like an advertising realm. Some of these guys like Norman Rockwell or J.C. Leyendecker, their great work was doing magazine covers and advertising campaigns. Looks like I have 1 minute remaining, and I'm hoping that it'll let me download this thing and post it. Again, thanks for watching. This is against my nature. I don't like putting my face and my voice in front of things. At most, I like to do these like making of videos with time lapse and music behind them. So it's unusual, I think, to put myself out in front like this unless I'm working at a show. But since the festivals got canceled, here we are. Maybe I'll do one of these again soon. Thank you guys. Have a great weekend. Happy June comes up soon. And if anyone's a gamer, keep an eye out for the PlayStation 5 reveal this next week. That sounds exciting. All right, take care.